everyone, welcome to Storytime with Anna. Today we'll be reading Pony Pals, Pony and the Lost Swan by Janae Betancourt. Chapter 1 White Feathers. Lulu Sanders rode her pony Snow White along Bad Brook. Lulu and her friends were going for an afternoon trail ride around Lake Apamapog. Lulu halted Snow White at the beginning of the lake trail. Anna and Pam rode up beside her on their ponies, Acorn and Lightning. "Let's ride to the beach," suggested Lulu. "The ponies can wade," said Anna. "Acorn loves to do that." Lulu patted Snow White's neck. "You like to wade too," she reminded her pony Snow White. Snow White nodded her head as if to agree. Lulu turned Snow White left onto the narrow trail and looked out at the lake. The surface of the water shone in the bright sunlight. As Lulu moved Snow White into a fast walk, a flock of Canadian geese honked overhead. "Riding on the lake trail is so much fun," thought Lulu. Suddenly Snow White stopped and lowered her head to smell the ground. "No grazing," Lulu scolded as she gently pulled up on the reins. Snow White tugged against the reins and niggered. Lulu saw that Snow White wasn't trying to eat beach grass. She was sniffing a big white feather. There were more white feathers near it. Anna and Pam halted their ponies. "Why'd we stop?" asked Pam. "Snow White found some feathers," answered Lulu as she dismounted. Anna and Pam slid off their ponies too. The three girls studied the sandy strip of lakefront. They saw a lot of feathers. Some were big, some were small, but they were all white. Anna picked up a few feathers. "What kind of bird has feathers like these?" she asked. "They look like swan feathers," answered Lulu. The pony pals scanned the lake, but they didn't see any swans. "We can't see the whole lake from here," observed Pam as she gathered a few feathers. Anna stuck her little bouquet of feathers in the side of Acorn's halter. Lulu collected feathers too for Snow White's halter. "Let's look for swans," suggested Anna as she mounted Acorn. "I've never seen them in real life." "I have," said Pam. "They're really beautiful and big. I saw a lot of swans in England with my father," said Lulu. Lulu loved the big white birds and knew a lot about them. She hoped there would be swans on Lake Apamapog. The pony pals continued along a winding trail toward the town beach. When the trail straightened out, the view opened up. Lulu halted Snow White and pointed to a white swan gliding gracefully along the water. Three baby swans followed. Pam pulled Lightning up beside Snow White. "That's so beautiful," she whispered. Snow White looked out at the swans and whinnied softly. "The babies are adorable," added Anna, "but they're brown, not white." "They'll turn white later," Lulu told them. She looked through her binoculars. "The babies are called cygnets. The swan with them is probably their mother. The females are smaller than the males." "I wonder where the father is," said Pam. "Maybe the mother raises the babies alone," suggested Anna. Lulu shook her head. "Swans mate for life," she explained. "The father helps raise the cygnets." "Let's stop here and watch them," suggested Pam. "Okay," agreed Anna. While the ponies waited and drank from the edge of the lake, the girls sat on a log to watch the swan and her babies. The cygnets climbed onto their mother's back and slid back down. "That is so cute," giggled Anna. "It's like their mother is a slide." "Sometimes they hide under their mother's wings," commented Lulu. The cygnets swam around their mother. After a few turns, they climbed up her side again. This time they stayed under her wings. A few minutes later, they slid back into the water. Lulu loved the graceful way the mother moved her long neck. Her feathers glowed in the sunlight. "White feathers," whispered Lulu. "She's White Feathers." "How do you know her name?" asked Pam. "It just popped into my head," said Lulu. "It's a perfect name for her," said Anna. "Let's call her White Feathers," agreed Pam. "Tell us more about swans, Lulu," added Anna. They like to hear people sing, remembered Lulu. I sang a lullaby to the swans in England. Two of them moved their necks and wings to the music. It was like a dance. Let's sing to White Feathers and her babies, suggested Anna. The girls sang Row, row, row your boat first. They sang in unison. Then they sang it as a round. White Feathers swam closer to the shore. The cygnets followed. Next, the pony pals sang Make new friends but keep the old. White Feathers faced them, balanced on her tail, and waved her wings. Wow! Exclaimed Anna. She's saying hello, explained Lulu. The largest of the three cygnets tried to imitate his mother. He fluffed up his little wings, but they didn't fan out. Lulu looked over at the ponies. Acorn and Lightning were ignoring the swans, but Snow White was watching everything they did. She nickered softly. Snow White likes them, observed Pam. Let's name the cygnets, suggested Anna. Friendly would be a good name for that big one, said Pam, because he tried to wave to us. Perfect, agreed Anna. What about the littlest one? Asked Pam. White Feathers swam smoothly toward the middle of the lake. Lulu looked at the cygnets through her binoculars. Two of the cygnets stayed near her, but the littlest cygnet trailed behind. Let's name her Slowpoke, she suggested. That's cute, agreed Anna. I like it. Now what about the middle-sized one? Asked Pam. You name her, said Lulu as she handed Pam the binoculars. Pam looked through the binoculars. Look, she said, the middle-sized one keeps putting her head in the water and her bottom sticks up. She's trying to eat from the lake, explained Lulu. The cygnet bobbed back upright and tried to go under again. Her little bottom pointed to the sky. The girls giggled. She's not big enough to do it right, explained Lulu. She's practicing. Bottom up, said Pam. We should call her Bottom Up. Anna and Lulu agreed that Bottom Up was a perfect name for the cygnet. The pony pals watched the swans until they swam out of sight. Maybe we'll see White Feathers, Friendly, Slowpoke, and Bottom Up from the town beach, said Anna. They're heading in that direction. I wish we'd see the father too, said Lulu. Anna took the lead and the pony pals continued along the trail toward the town beach. There's Mr. Klein, Anna called to her friends. Lulu recognized the Klein's red pickup truck and saw Mr. Klein fishing from the shore. The Kleins owned the local hardware store. The Pony Pals often babysat for 5-year-old Mimi Klein and pony sat for her mischievous pony Tongo. The girls liked the Kleins. Mr. Klein saw the Pony Pals and waved. They waved back and rode over to him. How are the Pony Pals? Mr. Klein asked. Great, answered Pam and Anna in unison. We saw swans, Anna told Mr. Klein as she dismounted. A mother and her three cygnets, added Lulu. I've seen them, said Mr. Klein. They're beautiful, aren't they? Yes, agreed Pam, but there was no father. Lulu and Pam slid off their ponies too. Did you see a male swan? Asked Lulu. Mr. Klein reeled in his fishing line. Yes, he answered. That swan couple came to the lake a couple of months ago. Anna looked around. I wonder where he is now, she said. The male was killed last week, Mr. Klein told the Pony Pals. Anna gasped. That's so awful, said Pam in a hushed voice. How was she killed? Asked Lulu. He was shot with a bow and arrow, answered Mr. Klein. His mate was very upset. I heard that she swam around the body for a long time. No one said anything for a few seconds. We call them Mother Swan White Feathers, Anna said softly. Lulu brushed her hand over the white feathers in Snow White's halter. Are these the dead swan's feathers? She wondered. Chapter 2 Enemies The ponies drank from the lake while the pony pals talked to Mr. Klein about the swans. Why would somebody kill a swan? Pam asked Mr. Klein. For sport, he answered, or to get rid of it. A lot of people think swans are fierce and dangerous. Are they? Asked Anna. Swans are big birds and very protective of their young, answered Mr. Klein. So some people are afraid of them. The three cygnets swam around their mother. There were four cygnets the last time I was here, continued Mr. Klein. I guess one of them didn't make it. Poor little cygnet, said Anna sadly. Whitefeathers lost her mate and one of her babies, observed Pam. Was the cygnet shot with a bow and arrow too? Asked Lulu. I don't think so, answered Mr. Klein. I bet a snapping turtle got it. They go after cygnets and goslings. Or a hawk could have swooped down and taken it. The father wasn't there to help protect them, said Lulu. I hope nothing happens to the other babies, said Anna. There are a lot of dangers to wildlife in the lake, Mr. Klein told them. Like pesticides and trash, put in Lulu. Right, agreed Mr. Klein. He held out a length of fishing line. And this stuff. Fishing line? Said Pam. How is that dangerous? People are careless about their fishing line, he explained. When a fish hook gets caught on something, some fishermen cut the line off at the pole. That leaves tangles of fishing line in the water and in the bushes. Birds could get tangled up in it, commented Lulu. There must be hooks in the water too, observed Anna. That's right, agreed Mr. Klein. Lulu spotted Whitefeathers and her cygnets in the distance. She hoped they would stay safe. Mr. Klein looked at his watch. I better get on with my fishing, he said. I have to be back at the store in an hour. We're going to the diner, Anna told him. Anna's mother owned the off-main diner, so the pony pals could eat there whenever they wanted. Your mother's diner is the best in Wiggins, said Mr. Klein with a wink. It's the only diner in Wiggins, giggled Anna. The pony pals led their ponies out of the water. They mounted and said goodbye to Mr. Klein. If you girls find any fishing line, bring it to the hardware store, he said. I recycle it. We will, agreed Pam. The pony pals rode onto the lake trail and headed back towards Bad Brook. Whenever they had a view of the lake, they stopped and looked for the swans. As they rode, Lulu thought about her pony pals. Pam and Anna loved the outdoors, wildlife, and ponies as much as she did. Pam Crandall knew the most about ponies. Her father was a veterinarian and her mother was a riding teacher. Pam could ride a pony before she could walk. Lightning and Pam were an excellent jumping team. Anna Harley learned everything she knew about ponies from Pam. They'd been riding together since they were in kindergarten. Anna didn't have her own pony until she was 10 years old. Before that, she rode the ponies at Mrs. Crandall's riding school. She also loved to draw and paint ponies. Because Anna was dyslexic, reading and writing were difficult for her, but she was an excellent artist. Anna's paintings of Snow White was hanging in Lulu's bedroom. Lulu knew more about wildlife than her friends. Her father was a naturalist who studied and wrote about wild animals. Lulu's mother died when Lulu was only a few years old. After that, Lulu traveled all over the world with her dad. But when she turned 10, her father decided that Lulu should live in one place for a while. That's when Lulu moved to Wiggins to live with her grandmother. There aren't any elephants, giraffes, or kangaroos to study in Wiggins, thought Lulu. But there are plenty of other animals and birds to observe. Maybe I'll be a naturist like my father when I grow up. Or will I be a detective? Anna and Pam were always saying that Lulu was a great detective. Lulu believed that being a naturist and a detective was part of being a pony pal. Hey, it's the pony pest, a boy's voice shouted from behind Lulu. Lulu knew who it was without turning around. Tommy Rand and Mike Lacey. They were older boys who liked to tease the pony pals. Lulu thought the boys were immature and annoying. Sometimes Mike could be okay, but only when he wasn't with Tommy Rand. Should we outride them? Asked Pam. We're faster. Yes, agreed Anna, as she moved Acorn into a gallop. Lightning and Snow White picked up speed too. The boys' shouts became fainter. Lulu slowed Snow White to a halt. Wait, she yelled to her friends. Anna and Pam pulled their ponies up behind Snow White. I bet Tommy and Mike fish, said Lulu. We should tell them about the problem with fishing lines at the lake. Good idea, said Pam, as she halted Lightning. The pony pals turned their ponies around to face the boys and block the trail. Tommy screeched his bike to a halt. Hey, get out of the way, he shouted. Acorn whinnied at Tom. Snow White backed up 2 steps. She didn't like bikes. Lulu thought she didn't like Tommy Rand either. We have something important to tell you, Lulu told the boys, about the lake. Do you fish? Asked Pam. What's it to you? Tommy said back. Lulu took a deep breath. She wanted to gallop away from the boys and leave them in the dust, but she also wanted to protect the wildlife on the lake, especially the swans and her cygnets. Sometimes fishermen hurt birds and other animals around the lake, said Pam, even though they don't mean to. How? Asked Mike. What do you care? Tommy grumbled at Mike. You're just catching fish. Lulu ignored Tommy and told Mike what they learned from Mr. Klein. Let's go, Mike, Tommy said to Mike as he got back on his bike. Sure, we're out of here, buddy, agreed Mike as he hopped on his bike. Lulu pulled Snow White out of the way. The boys rode their bikes around the pony pals and continued on the trail. The boring pony pest, shouted Tommy over his shoulder. The dumb, rude bike buddies, Anna yelled after them. Acorn nickered in agreement. I hate how Mike does whatever Tommy wants, said Pam. He thinks Tommy is so great, said Anna. But he's not, that's for sure, agreed Lulu as she and Snow White took the lead on the trail. Half an hour later, the pony pals were in their favorite booth at the diner. They each had a grilled cheese and tomato sandwich and shared a big plate of French fries. Lulu pushed the fries in Pam's direction. If people like Tommy Rand are fishing on the lake, said Lulu, White Feathers and her cygnets are in danger. What can we do to protect them? Asked Pam. Lulu thought about White Feathers and her 3 cygnets. White Feathers didn't have a mate to help her protect her babies. This is the pony pal problem, Lulu told her friends. Let's come up with some ideas. Chapter 3 New Friend. Pam put a pile of fries on her plate. I have an idea, she said. We should talk to people who fish at the lake. Maybe they don't know that their old fishing line and hooks can hurt birds and animals. That's a good idea, agreed Anna. We can't talk to everyone, said Lulu. A lot of people fish very early in the morning or when we're in school. We can make a sign, suggested Anna, and post it at the fishing dock. Lulu and Pam liked Anna's idea. We can also clean up fishing lines and hooks that people leave behind, said Pam. If we ride our ponies when we do it, added Lulu, we can reach the high bushes. Brilliant, exclaimed Anna. Let's bring some food for the swans too, said Pam. Maybe the swans will come on the shore for it, said Anna. I'd love to draw them while they eat. But we can't get too close to White Feathers, Lulu reminded her friends. Not until she trusts us. The girls talked some more about the swans while they finished eating. It was too late for them to go back to the lake that day. They agreed to return in the morning. The next day, the pony pals rode back to Lake Apamapog. Lulu had packed binoculars, her camera, clippers, a collection bag, 5 slices of whole wheat bread, a bag of cracked corn, and her pony pal whistle. She wore rubber riding boots so she could walk in the water. Snow White trotted happily along the trail. Snow White wants to see the swans again, too, thought Lulu. When the girls reached the end of Bad Brook, they had their first view of the lake. There were no swans in sight. Lulu scanned the lake and shoreline through her binoculars. I don't see them, she said. We can't see the whole lake from here, Pam reminded Lulu. I bet they're at the other end. Lulu hoped Pam was right. A few minutes later, Pam and Anna rode their ponies into the low water. Lulu waded in, leading Snow White. Lightning nodded her head as if to say, This is fun. Acorn nickered cheerfully. Snow White looked around. She's looking for the swans, thought Lulu. Anna and Pam rode along the shoreline and inspected the bushes for fishing line. Lulu studied the bottom of the lake through the ankle-deep water. Fishing line is transparent, Lulu told her friends. It's going to be hard to find it. Anna was the first to spot fishing line caught in a bush. Pam helped her untangle it. Snow White pawed the bottom of the lake and whinnied fearfully. Lulu tightened the grip on the reins and moved closer to her pony. What's wrong, Snow White? She asked. Lulu slipped out of the saddle and inspected Snow White's hooves and lower legs. It's okay, she told her pony. Everything is okay. Lulu spoke calmly, but her heart beat fast. She was frightened for her pony. What if she was injured? Snow White stood still for Lulu, but there was fear in her eyes. Lulu raised Snow White's right front leg and ran her hand along it. She felt a ridge of thin plastic fishing line. It was loosely wrapped around Snow White's leg. Lulu took it off and inspected it. Next, she checked Snow White's other legs. She's okay, Lulu told Pam and Anna. Some old fishing line was wrapped around her front leg, but there wasn't any fish hooks on it. Lulu patted Snow White's neck. You're all right, she said gently. She put the fishing line in her backpack. You found some fishing line. You're helping. Lulu tugged a little on Snow White's lead line to move her forward. Snow White refused to move. Her body trembled. She's still scared, observed Anna. I'm going to take her out of the water, Lulu said as she turned Snow White toward land. You keep searching for fishing line. I'll look near the beach. Let's signal one another if we see white feathers in our signals, suggested Pam. 2 long blasts if you see them, said Anna. And the SOS signal if there's trouble, added Pam. Short, long, short. Lulu agreed to the signals and led Snow White back to land. A few minutes later, they were at the beach, but Snow White was still acting frightened. Lulu stroked her pony's side. You're safe, she told her. You didn't get hurt. Lulu knew singing calmed Snow White, so she sang her pony a lullaby. She gazed into her pony's eyes. They were calm again. Lulu remembered the first time she sang to Snow White. The pretty white pony was caught in barbed wire that had cut her leg. The fishing line around her leg must have reminded Snow White of the barbed wire, thought Lulu. Snow White turned toward the lake and nickered. Lulu looked out and saw 2 cygnets swimming toward them. It was bottom up and friendly. They liked the lullaby, too, thought Lulu. Lulu looked in all directions, but she didn't see White Feathers or Slowpoke. The Cygnets are in great danger without their mother, thought Lulu. She took the bread out of her saddlebag, broke it in little pieces, and walked into the water. Friendly, bottom up, she called in a sing-song voice. Come see what I have for you. Lulu threw the bread in the cygnet's direction. Bottom up swam right up to the bread and ate it. Lulu threw another piece, but closer to the shore. Friendly swam up to that piece, gulped it down, and looked at Lulu. If you want some more, she said, as she dropped a piece of bread on the edge of the sand, you'll have to come and get it. Friendly walked over to the bread and ate it. Snow White nickered a hello to him. Lulu put a piece on the beach. Friendly walked over to it. Bottom Up was still in the water. Lulu waded further into the water. Come on, Bottom Up, she called. Finally, Bottom Up swam to the sandy edge of the lake. Friendly made a little peeping sound. Bottom Up peeped back to her brother and walked onto land. Snow White lowered her head and watched the cygnets curiously. Lulu made a little pen for the cygnets with fallen branches. She was glad that the cygnets were safe. But where's their mother? She wondered. And where's Slowpoke? Lulu took out her whistle and moved away from the cygnets. She didn't want to frighten them when she blew the SOS signal, but she had to do it. Lulu knew that a mother swan would never leave her young cygnets alone. White Feathers was in trouble. Chapter 4. A Plastic Bag. Pam and Anna rode toward Lulu. She waved to them and pointed to the cygnets. The rider slid off their ponies and led them slowly toward the beach. Lulu met them halfway. Everyone was being careful not to frighten the cygnets. Where are White Feathers and Slowpoke? Whispered Pam. I don't know, answered Lulu. Friendly and Bottom Up swim over here alone. Do mother swans ever leave their babies alone? Asked Pam. No, answered Lulu. The pony pals exchanged a worried glance. Maybe she's injured, said Pam. Or dead, thought Lulu. She knew that Anna and Pam were thinking the same thing, but no one said it out loud. We have to search for White Feathers and Slowpokes, said Lulu, but we can't leave Bottom Up and Friendly alone. Lulu, you're the best detective, said Pam. You shouldn't lead the search. And you know a lot about injured animals, Pam, said Anna. So you should go with Lulu. I'll stay here with the cygnets. Okay, agreed Pam. Snow White nickered gently at the cygnets. Friendly tottered closer to the pony and peeped. The cygnets like Snow White, observed Anna. Can she stay and help me take care of them? Asked Anna. You can ride Acorn. Acorn is the best pony detective, said Pam. Besides, added Lulu, if we wade into the lake, Snow White might spook again. Anna handed Acorn's reins to Lulu. I'll signal you if White Feathers and Slowpoke show up here, she said. Okay, agreed Lulu as she mounted Acorn. Pam and Lightning followed Lulu and Acorn on the lake trail. What clues should we look for? Pam asked Lulu. Fresh swan droppings, feathers, and down, answered Lulu. Down is that white fluffy stuff. The girls looked for clues as they rode along the trail. Every few minutes, Lulu scanned the lake and shoreline with her binoculars. There was no sign of White Feathers or the small cygnet. They came to a stretch of lakefront with dense bushes and underbrush. Acorn and I will search from the water side, Lulu told Pam as she dismounted. You keep searching on the trail side. Lulu led Acorn into the shallow water. She scanned the other side of the lake through her binoculars. Suddenly, Acorn pulled on the reins and whinnied. "What's wrong, Acorn?" Lulu asked as she turned to the pony. Acorn stared at a plastic shopping bag caught in the underbrush. Lulu was surprised that Acorn had spooked because of the plastic bag. Usually nothing spooked Anna's pony. "It's only a plastic bag," Lulu told Acorn. Acorn pulled on the reins again and sniffed. He wanted to go closer to the plastic bag. "Okay," Lulu agreed. "You can check it out, but I'm telling you that it's nothing to be afraid of." When they reached the underbrush, Acorn whinnied softly. Lulu realized that Acorn wasn't spooked and he wasn't interested in the plastic bag. A swan was laying near the bag in the underbrush. "Ham," Lulu called out. "Acorn found white feathers." Lulu moved the plastic bag. She was horrified by what she saw. White Feathers was trapped in fishing line and could not move. Her wings were pinned to her body. A silver fishhook was stuck in her foot and another one was in her leg. The pony pals looked down at the trapped bird. "Is she still alive?" Pam asked in a hoarse whisper. Before Lulu could answer, White Feathers opened her eyes and looked at them. She seemed to be pleading for help. "We'll help you, White Feathers," said Pam soothingly. "Ow," Lulu whispered to Pam. "I don't know," Pam answered. "If we take out the fish hooks, she might start bleeding. If we cut the fishing line, she could swim off with hooks in her leg and foot. The wounds could become infected." "Should we get your dad?" asked Lulu. "He doesn't take care of wild animals or birds," answered Pam, "but St. Francis Animal Shelter does. Miss Raskins has a lot of experience with injured birds." "I'll find a phone and call the shelter," said Lulu. "You stay here with White Feathers." "Okay," agreed Pam, "but hurry. I don't know how long White Feathers can last like this." "I'll be back with help, White Feathers," Lulu told the trapped bird. As Lulu rode toward the beach, she remembered Slowpoke. They'd found White Feathers, but they hadn't found her smallest signet. Lulu rode off the trail to the paved road. "I'll stop at the first house I see," she decided. But she reached the beach before she found a house. Mr. Klein's truck was still parked there. Lulu remembered that Mr. Klein had a cell phone. As she rode toward Anna and Mr. Klein, she blew the SOS signal. Anna and Mr. Klein saw Lulu and ran to meet her at the hitching post. "Acorn found White Feathers," Lulu said breathlessly. "She's injured. I need a phone." Mr. Klein took the cell phone out of his pocket and handed it to Lulu. "I can give you and the Swan a ride," he said. Lulu called directory assistance, asked for the animal shelter number, and waited while it rang. "Please answer the phone, Miss Raskins," Lulu prayed. Miss Raskins picked up on the fifth ring. Lulu quickly told her about the trapped swan and that Mr. Klein and Pam were there to help. "I can't leave the shelter right now," Miss Raskins explained. "You need to get that swan to me as quickly as possible. Have Mr. Klein and Pam cut the hooks away from the fishing line. If they can, they should remove them." "Should we cut the fishing line too?" asked Lulu. "It's wrapped all around her." "Don't try to untangle it," cautioned Miss Raskins. "It's practically invisible on a swan and very difficult to remove safely. You might strangle her. Just get the hooks out and come as fast as you can. We'll remove the fishing line here." "Ask her about the signets," Anna told Lulu. Lulu told Miss Raskins about the signets. Bring the two you found to the shelter, too, instructed Miss Raskins. After Lulu hung up, she spotted a small cardboard box in the back of Mr. Klein's pickup truck. Mr. Klein removed fishing supplies from the box and gave it to Anna. It was the perfect size to carry the signets in. Pam will help you with the signets, Lulu told Anna. I'll ride in the truck with White Feathers. Snow White can come with me and Acorn, said Anna. I'll hold on to her lead rope. You should put the box with the signets on Snow White's saddle, suggested Lulu as she climbed into the pickup truck and poke breathing holes in the top of the box and put some grass in it. Okay, called Anna as Mr. Klein turned on the truck's engine. Lulu looked back at the two signets on the beach. I just hope we're not too late, Lulu prayed. I hope we can save their mother's life. Chapter 5 Flashing Red Light. Lulu and Mr. Klein waded through the water toward Pam and White Feathers. How is she? Asked Lulu. She's still breathing, answered Pam. While Mr. Klein and Pam worked on the Swan, Lulu spoke soothingly to her. Pam held back Feathers so Mr. Klein could cut the hooks away from the fishing line. Next, Mr. Klein carefully removed the fish hooks. The injured swan didn't move while they worked on her. Look how well she's behaving, commented Mr. Klein. She knows we're trying to help her, said Pam. When the hooks were out, Mr. Klein carried the heavy bird to the truck. Lulu ran ahead to open the door for him. Mr. Klein lay White Feathers on the back seat. Lulu climbed in on the other side and sat next to her. Mr. Klein snapped his volunteer fireman's lights to the roof of the truck. It spun around, flashing a red light. I'll get us there as fast as I can, he told Lulu as he drove on the road. Lulu covered White Feather's trapped wings with her jacket. The swan tucked her head back on her neck and looked at Lulu. She's helpless, frightened, and in pain, thought Lulu. Lulu reached out and gently touched White Feather's neck. She hummed a lullaby and gently moved her hands in little circles on Swan's neck. The tiny neck feathers felt lush and soft. White Feathers let out a long, loud sigh. She trusts me, thought Lulu. Miss Raskins was waiting for them in front of the shelter's main building. When the truck stopped, she opened the door and looked down at White Feathers. Poor Swan, she said softly. Miss Raskins carefully lifted White Feathers out of the truck and carried her over to an examining table. We don't want to frighten her by bringing her indoors, she explained as she lay White Feathers on the table. There's a hawk in the examining room. The table was covered with fresh white paper. A bag of medical supplies was on a chair next to it. Can I help you take off the fishing line? Lulu asked. Certainly, answered Miss Raskins. I'll need your help. I wish I could stay and help too, said Mr. Klein, but I have to get back to the store. Mr. Klein left, and Lulu and Miss Raskins began White Feather's treatment. First, they cleaned the fishhook wounds. Her wounds are infected, commented Miss Raskins, and she's a little feverish. Next, Miss Raskins gave White Feathers an antibiotic shot in her chest. Finally, she and Lulu carefully cut and unwrapped the fishing line. White Feathers seemed to know that they were helping her. She stayed perfectly still the whole time. When White Feather's wings were freed, Miss Raskins felt along the joints. Nothing seems to be broken, she commented. Time to put her in the waterfowl pen. Miss Raskins put her arms around Whitefeather's wings and carried her over to the large pen. Lulu ran ahead and opened the gate for her. Okay, try out your wings, said Miss Raskins as she set the Swan down. Whitefeather stretched her wings, fluffed up her feathers, lifted up her head, and shook herself. You'll be okay, Miss Raskins told Whitefeathers, but you're going to have to stay here for a while. Whitefeathers took a few steps forward, but her stride was uneven. She's limping, observed Lulu. From the infected fishhook wounds, explained Miss Raskins. Lulu heard the clip-clop of pony hooves. She turned to see her pony pals and the three ponies approaching. Anna and Acorn rode first, leading Snow White. The box of signets was tied to Snow White's saddle. Pam and Lightning took up the rear. They were headed toward the hitching post behind the building. Go meet your friends and tell them to move slowly around Whitefeathers, Miss Raskins warned. She's going to want to protect her babies. Lulu ran to meet her friends. She told them all the news about Whitefeathers and Miss Raskin's warning. Snow White nuzzled Lulu's shoulder hello. Lulu patted her pony on the head. Thanks for taking care of Friendly and Bottom Up, she said. Lulu untied the box of signets from Snow White's saddle. Pam and Anna tied the ponies to the hitching post. When Lulu had the box of signets in her arms, the pony pals walked to the waterfowl pen. Whitefeathers didn't see them at first. She was trying out her wings and walking with a limp. Miss Raskins gave the girls instructions on letting out the signets. Anna opened the gate, and Lulu opened the box and put it on the ground. The little brown swans looked up at her curiously. Lulu lifted out Friendly and placed him inside the gate. Anna took out Bottom Up. Friendly started peeping. Whitefeathers turned and saw her babies. She tossed her head and peeped with excitement as she limped toward them. They ran to her. When the Cygnets and Whitefeathers met, she opened her wings. The babies settled under them. Whitefeathers looked around. Lulu wondered if she was looking for her missing Cygnet. How lovely, exclaimed Miss Raskins. Their mother is going to take care of them now, said Anna. Actually, I'm going to have to take care of all of them, said Miss Raskins. I need to set up a pool, give them food and water, and care for the injured mother. She sighed. We were understaffed and overworked before this family arrived. We can help, said the pony pals in unison. We need to keep an eye on them around the clock for the first 24 hours, said Miss Raskins, and you have to be very careful around Whitefeathers. She's injured. Is Whitefeathers going to be okay? Asked Anna. Only time will tell, answered Miss Raskins. Those wounds are infected and she has a fever. We also have to keep checking her for fishing line. There could still be some wrapped around her legs or neck that could cut off circulation in her legs or choke her. Fishing line is hard to find on a swan, commented Lulu. They have so many feathers. That is exactly the problem, agreed Miss Raskins. The pony pals watched Friendly and Bottom Up follow their mother around the yard. The mother swan and two of her babies were reunited. But we didn't save Slowpoke, thought Lulu, and Whitefeathers is still in danger. Chapter 6. Help Me. We'll help you take care of Whitefeathers and the Cygnets, Lulu told Miss Raskins. We can stay overnight, offered Pam. We've done a lot of night watches for sick ponies. We make up a schedule and take turns during the night, explained Lulu. We have our own tent and sleeping bags, added Anna. Miss Raskin smiled at the pony pals. I can certainly use your help, she said gratefully. I'll sleep here tonight too and take a turn, but you'll have to get permission from your parents. The girls put the ponies in the paddock and called their homes. Pam's and Anna's parents and Lulu's grandmother all agreed the girls could stay overnight at the shelter. Mrs. Crandall offered to bring them their tent and sleeping bags. The girls' first job for the Swans was to set up a large kiddie swimming pool and fill it with water. White Feathers watched curiously. When the pool was filled, she limped over and looked in. Her signets followed. Miss Raskins picked up White Feathers and put her in the water. Anna and Lulu put Bottom up and Friendly near their mother. White Feathers sat in the water and her signets climbed on her back. That is so sweet, said Anna. Miss Raskin smiled at the girls. Thanks, she said. You're doing a great job. While they're in the pool, let's clean up the medical supplies and take a break. During the break, Miss Raskins and Pony Pals ate cookies, drank juice, and talked about how to care for the swans. Pam made a list. To-do list for care of White Feathers and 2 signets. 1. Daily antibiotic injection for White Feathers. 2. Watch for signs of more fishing line around White Feather's neck and legs. Is White Feathers eating okay? Is her foot or leg swollen? 3. Check White Feather's wounds. Is there pus coming from the wound? Does the wound smell bad? Can she walk without limping? 4. Keep the kiddie pool filled with fresh water. 5. Prepare food. Wash lettuce and other greens. Clean off pesticides. Chop greens for cygnets. Non-medicated bird food for White Feathers. Make mash of non-medicated game bird food and water for cygnets. 6. Leave out fresh food and water. 7. Clean up droppings and put on compost heap. 8. Keep pen very clean. The pony pals looked over the list. We should feed them now, said Lulu. Miss Raskins agreed. Anna poured fresh water in a big bowl. Lulu and Pam prepared the greens and the mash for the cygnets. Anna put a bowl with bird food on the ground for White Feathers. Meanwhile, Miss Raskins was feeding the other animals at the shelter. As the girls were leaving the pen, Mrs. Crandall drove up with their camping gear. You watch the swans, Lulu, suggested Pam. Anna and I will get our gear from my mom and set up the tent. Pam and Anna ran toward the truck. Lulu stood outside the pen watching White Feathers and her cygnets eat. Lulu noticed that White Feathers was eating the cygnets' mash instead of her own food. Has she already finished the bird food? Wondered Lulu. Lulu went into the pen to check the bowl of bird food. White Feathers hadn't eaten any of it. The swan took a nibble of the soft mash. As she swallowed, little choking sounds came from her long neck. It's hard for her to swallow, thought Lulu. Is there still a fishing line wrapped around her throat? What's wrong, White Feathers? Lulu asked gently. The injured swan looked up and walked over to her. Lulu sat down on the ground. I want to help you, she said. Can I look at your neck? White Feathers sat in front of Lulu and lay her head and long neck in Lulu's lap. Lulu felt like she was in a dream. White Feathers completely trusted her. Lulu gently stroked the swan's neck. She worked her fingers deep into the soft feathers. With the tip of her forefinger, she felt a tiny ridge going around Swan's neck. Fishing line is choking you, she told White Feathers, but I found it. Now I have to cut it. Don't move. The swan stayed still while Lulu felt in her pocket for her camping knife. She took it out and opened up the scissors. With the tiny scissors, Lulu cut the fishing line. Next, she removed the tangle of line from around the swan's neck. Whitefeather stretched out her neck and waggled her tail as if to say thank you. You're welcome, said Lulu with a little bow. Whitefeathers limped back to her food. Lulu looked up and saw her pony pals, Miss Raskins and Mrs. Crandall, all standing outside the pen. Lulu showed them the fishing line and told them what happened. Whitefeathers put her head in my lap, concluded Lulu. It was so beautiful. She really trusts you, said Miss Raskins. Lulu has a wonderful way with animals, commented Mrs. Crandall. Anna grinned at Lulu. Just like your dad, she said. I do have a special connection to animals, thought Lulu. I'll always have them in my life. Lots of them. While Miss Raskins was with the swans, the pony pals fed their ponies. Snow White was standing where she could watch Whitefeathers and the cygnets. Lulu put her arms around her pony's neck. They're okay, Lulu told her pony. We're going to take good care of them. Snow White sighed. First, there were 4 baby swans, thought Lulu. Then there were 3. Now there were only 2. Lulu wished they found Slowpoke when they found Whitefeathers. Was Slowpoke eaten by a turtle or hawk, she wondered? Or was she caught in fishing line like her mother? A little cygnet like that would never survive alone on the lake. Who was fishing on the lake now? Were they leaving fishing line in the bushes and lake? Would another bird or animal become endangered? Chapter 7. I Don't Care. Snow White continued to watch the swans. When the swans moved to the right or left, she followed them with her eyes. Snow White really loves Whitefeathers and her babies, Lulu told Pam and Anna. I think she'd follow them anywhere. That's why I was surprised, said Anna as she gave Acorn a handful of feed. Surprised by what? Asked Lulu. Snow White didn't want to leave the beach with us, answered Anna. Even when the cygnets were on her saddle, she wanted to stay. She tried to go in the water, added Pam. And Snow White didn't like the water today, said Anna. Remember how she spooked? Lulu told her friends that Snow White was so frightened in the water because of the day she was caught in barbed wire. The fishing line around her leg reminded her of that, concluded Lulu. That was the day Anna and I met you, said Pam. The beginning of the Pony Pals, said Anna. And the day we rescued Snow White, added Lulu. Now we've rescued Whitefeathers and 2 of her babies, said Anna. But not Slowpoke, added Pam sadly. She's lost forever, said Anna. Poor little thing. Lulu followed Anna and Pam out of the paddock and closed the gate behind them. Why didn't Snow White want to leave the lake with Bottom Up and Friendly? She wondered out loud. Anna turned to Lulu. Maybe she wanted to stay because of Slowpoke, she said. Maybe Snow White thinks Slowpoke is still alive. Ponies can smell and hear things people can't, said Pam. Snow White might have smelled Slowpoke, said Lulu, or maybe she heard her peeping. How could she be alive? Asked Anna. There are lots of turtles in that lake. It's so dangerous out there for one little cygnet. I don't know, answered Lulu, but we have to go back and search for her. You're right, agreed Pam. Lulu told Miss Raskins their plan. It is possible a lone cygnet could still be alive, Miss Raskins admitted, but it's unlikely, and it will be so difficult to find the little brown creature in that big lake. We want to try, said Anna. Snow White will help. I'll watch the swans while you're gone, Miss Raskins said. She looked at the sky. The sun will be setting in 2 hours. You shouldn't ride after dark. The pony pals promised that they would return before sunset. Hurry, Lulu shouted to her friends as she ran back to the paddock. We don't have much time. Lulu put Snow White's saddle back on. "We're going to the lake again," she explained to her pony. "We're going to look for Slowpoke." Pam led for the first part of the ride. When they reached the lake trail, Lulu shook her head. A hawk flew overhead. "Did that hawk eat Slowpoke?" wondered Lulu. Lulu turned in the saddle. "We'll start the search at the beach where we found the other cygnets," she called to her friends. Lulu was the first to see Mike and Tommy fishing from the dock. She pointed them out to Anna and Pam as they continued toward the beach. The boys finally noticed them. "The pony pests are everywhere," shouted Tommy. He turned to Mike. "Call the exterminator." Anna and Lulu exchanged a glance. Anna rolled her eyes. Tommy always made the same stupid, not very funny exterminator joke about the pony pest. The three girls halted their ponies beside the dock. Tommy glared at them. "You can't fish on this dock," he said. "We were here first." "You don't own this lake," Tommy Rand, Anna scolded. "Or the dock." "You don't own this lake," Tommy Rand, he repeated in a high-pitched voice. "Or the dock." "Don't start that, Tommy," said Anna. "And don't copy what I just said." Tommy ignored Anna and repeated exactly what she had said. Anna clamped her mouth shut and glared at him. Lulu turned to Mike. "Remember the big white swan?" she asked. "Yeah," answered Mike. "She got caught in old fishing line," she said. "That swan almost died. She's at St. Francis Animal Shelter. She could still die." Mike looked concerned. "That's awful," he said. "What about the baby swans? What happened to them?" Lulu started to tell Mike how they rescued two of the cygnets when Tommy interrupted. "What do you care about a dumb old bird?" he asked Mike. "We've got to be more careful with our fishing line," Mike told him. "You be careful," snarled Tommy. "I'll be fishing." Tommy turned his back on Mike and the pony pals and threw out his line. Snow White tugged on the reins and nickered nervously. "Snow White doesn't like being around fishing line," thought Lulu. "It's spooking her." She backed her pony away from the dock. "Please don't leave fishing line in the lake or bushes," Pam told Mike. "It can kill birds and animals." "Mr. Klein is recycling old fishing line at the hardware store," added Lulu. "You can bring it there." "Tell Rosalie there are swans she can visit at the shelter, Mike," Anna said. "The cygnets are really cute." Rosalie was Mike's younger sister. She called herself a junior pony pal, but she didn't have a pony. Rosalie loved ponies, especially Acorn. "Yeah, sure," he agreed. "Mike, the problem with the fishing line is serious," added Pam. "I know," Mike said in a low voice. "Hey, man," Tommy called over his shoulder to Mike. "You fishing or turning into a pony pest?" Mike quickly turned from the pony pals, picked up his fishing rod, and walked back to Tommy. "We're wasting our time with these guys," said Pam. We weren't wasting our time on Mike, thought Lulu. He cares about the swans, and he'll be more careful with his fishing line now. She looked at her watch. They only had an hour to search for Slowpoke. Will we find her? She wondered. And if we do, will she be dead or alive? Chapter 8. A Bump on a Log. The girls rode to the spot where Friendly and Bottom Up came on shore. Anna looked over the big lake and densely wooded waterfront. "How do we look for her?" she asked. "I'll walk in the water and lead Snow White," said Lulu. "We don't have rubber riding boots," said Pam, "so we'll ride." Lulu dismounted and led Snow White on a loose lead. Snow White walked into the water ahead of her. The pony pals exchanged a surprised look. "I'm going to follow her," said Lulu as she waded into the water behind her pony. Anna and Pam followed on their ponies. Snow White walked slowly along the edge of the lake. She stopped twice and sniffed. The third time She stopped. Her ears went forward. She whinnied softly. She's listening to something, whispered Lulu. Snow White walked over to a dead tree. It hung a few inches above the water and was covered with vines. Lulu inspected the water and bramble under the tree trunk. There was no sign of the signet. I guess it was a false lead, said Lulu. She grabbed Snow White's halter and tried to turn her around. Snow White shook her head. She didn't want to leave. I think I see her, said Anna excitedly. Look on that log. Lulu studied the bumpy tree trunk. She didn't see the signet. Then one of the bumps near the water moved. Lulu waded over to the bump. It was the little signet. Slowpoke, she said in a hushed voice. Anna slid off Acorn and stood ankle deep in the water. Pam dismounted too. She's caught in the vines, said Anna. Maybe she was trying to hide and she couldn't get out, said Pam. The little signet peeped pitifully. I'll hold Slowpoke and you free her, Lulu told Anna and Pam. Lulu put her hands gently around the tiny bird. Her feathers felt downy and soft. Her body trembled. Don't be afraid, Lulu said gently. We're going to bring you to your mother. She must be so hungry, said Anna. And thirsty, added Pam, as she cut the vine. She can't reach the water from here. Lulu gently placed Slowpoke in the water. The weak little signet drank. Pam pulled grass up from the shore, tore it into little pieces, and put them on the water. Slowpoke ate a few small pieces. I don't think she's injured, said Pam. Me either, agreed Lulu. The pony pals looked at one another and grinned. They'd found the missing signet. Lulu put her arm around Snow White's neck. I'm so proud of you, she said. You found Slowpoke. Let's bring her to her mother, said Pam, as she held out the open box. Anna put in a handful of grass. Lulu lifted the wet ball of bird and put her on the bed of green. Your sister and brother were in this box, Lulu told Slowpoke. You're going to see them very soon. Miss Raskins was in the pen with White Feathers and the signets when the search party returned. We found Slowpoke, Anna called to her. Miss Raskins ran over to Lulu and Snow White. Lulu handed her the box. Amazing, she exclaimed. Pam told Miss Raskins how Snow White had found the little signet. Slowpoke was frightened and hungry, added Pam, but otherwise we think she's okay. Miss Raskins looked the signet over while the pony pals tied their ponies to the hitching post. Poor little thing, she said. She seems very weak. She handed Slowpoke to Lulu. You bring her to her mother. Lulu carefully carried the tiny signet over to the waterfowl pen. I have a surprise for you, she said as she went through the gate. She put Slowpoke on the ground. The little signet peeped. Whitefeather's head popped up and she looked around. When she saw Slowpoke, she honked for her. Slowpoke ran under her mother's wing. The two other cygnets joined her. Good work, girls, said Miss Raskins. You rescued Whitefeathers and her missing signet. Snow White is the one who found the signet, said Anna. And Acorn found Whitefeathers, added Lulu. Pam looked over at the swans. Whitefeathers is still limping, she observed. Is she going to be okay? Asked Anna. Her wound is infected, answered Miss Raskins. If the infection spreads, it can be very dangerous. Lulu watched Whitefeathers with her babies under her wing. If she dies, thought Lulu, her three signets will be orphans. Chapter 9. visitors. The girls unsaddled their ponies and put them in the paddock again. Meanwhile, Miss Raskins put out a picnic supper. Before they ate, the girls and Miss Raskins made a schedule for watching the swans. "I'll watch from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., volunteered Miss Raskins. Pam wrote it down. The pony pals divided up the rest of the night hours. While they ate supper, Miss Raskins told them interesting stories about rescuing animals. After dinner, Miss Raskins went to her office to do paperwork. The pony pals began their turns watching the swans. Anna and Lulu kept Pam company during her shift, but soon Lulu was yawning. "You two get some sleep," said Pam. "I'll wake you when it's your turn, Anna." Lulu fell asleep a few seconds after she lay down. The next thing she knew, someone was calling her name. "Wake up, Lulu," a voice whispered. Lulu rolled over in her sleeping bag and opened her eyes. Anna was kneeling beside her. "It's 2 o'clock," she said. "Your turn to watch the swans." Lulu unzipped her sleeping bag and sat up. "How's White Feathers?" she asked in a low voice. "She woke up and drank a lot of water," Anna answered as she handed Lulu the flashlight. "Her wounds look a little red." Lulu crawled out of the tent and zipped the flap closed behind her. A three-quarter moon glowed in the star-studded sky. She looked into the shed. White Feather's neck and head were resting on her back. The cygnets were asleep under her wings. Lulu was happy to see White Feathers resting, but worried about her infection. Next, she went over the to-do list. There was plenty of fresh food and water in the pen. She shoveled up swan droppings and put them on the compost heap. "That's done," she said to herself as she sat under a tree. Lulu leaned against the tree trunk and thought about the swans. So much had happened in a short time. She remembered it all like a movie in her mind, a movie with scary parts and happy ones. She hoped White Feathers would get better and her mind movie would have a happy ending. The next morning, the pony pals and Miss Raskins checked White Feathers carefully. There was no pus in her wounds and they didn't smell bad anymore. Her foot wasn't very swollen and she was limping less. "She seems to be recovering," Miss Raskins said as she gave White Feathers her daily antibiotic shot, "and Slowpoke is in good shape." Lulu looked over at the little cygnet. "She spent more time eating than her brother and sister." "Can they ever go back to the lake?" asked Anna. Miss Raskins smiled at the girls and nodded. "If White Feathers continues to recover," she said, "they can go back on Saturday." "Great!" exclaimed Pam. "I hope they'll be safe at the lake," said Anna. "Let's work on our sign," suggested Pam. "That will help keep them safe." "We can make it here," said Lulu, "so we can help take care of the swans while we work." The girls went over to the picnic table to have a pony pal meeting about the sign. Anna opened the meeting. "First thing we have to do is make a list of supplies," she said. "Then we have to decide what the sign is going to say," put in Pam. "And how it will look," added Lulu. She smiled at Anna. "Let's have pictures of the swans and other wildlife on it." "Okay," agreed Anna. "That'll be fun to do." She reached into her backpack and took out her sketch pad and pencil case. Pam handed Lulu her little pocket notebook. "Here," she said, "you make the list of supplies we'll need." "The first thing we need is a big piece of wood," said Anna. Lulu wrote it down. "And house paint," added Pam. "What color should we get, Anna?" asked Lulu. Anna looked up from her sketchbook. She was already practicing drawing swans. We need primary colors, she answered. Red, yellow, and blue. I can mix anything from those. It would be great to have some black and white too. Lulu added the 5 paint colors to her list. And we'll need a few brushes, said Anna, in different sizes. Lulu wrote brushes on the list. We can get all those supplies at the hardware store, commented Pam, but it's going to cost a lot of money. Maybe Mr. Klein will donate some of it, said Lulu. It's for a good cause. I bet he will, agreed Pam. He was upset about what happened to White Feathers. The girls were in the middle of their meeting when Mike, Rosalie, and Rosalie's friend Mimi came to the shelter. Lulu ran over to meet them. Don't make any big noises around the mother swan, she warned, and don't get too close. Mimi hugged Lulu around the waist. I love swans, she said. I think they're the prettiest birds. Rosalie does, too. Where are the swans? Asked Rosalie. Where's Miss Raskins? She's in her office, answered Lulu. Go tell her you're here and she'll show you the swans. Okay? Okay, agreed Rosalie. The 2 younger girls ran off, but Mike stayed with Lulu. Is the mother swan okay? He asked. She's getting better, Lulu told him. He looked in the direction of the picnic table. Anna was drawing and Pam was writing. What are you guys doing? He asked. Making a report on swans. Lulu told him about the sign. She headed back to the table. Mike walked beside her, but looked toward the waterfowl pen. Hey, there's the 3rd cygnet, he said. You found her. Snow White did, she said. Mike smiled. Lulu could see that he was really happy that they had rescued Slowpoke. When they reached the table, Anna looked up at Mike. Where's your bad boy buddy? She asked. Stop saying Tommy's bad, said Mike. You just don't know him like I do. He's a great guy. Lulu and Anna exchanged a glance. They hated it when Mike defended Tommy. As Lulu sat down next to Pam, she thought about how White Feather's mate died. Does Tommy have a bow and arrow? She asked Mike. Yeah, he answered. So what? So, said Lulu, the father of those baby swans was killed by a bow and arrow. Maybe your wonderful Tommy Wren did that. Mike's face turned pale. Tommy wouldn't hurt a swan, he protested. Are you sure? Asked Lulu. Chapter 10 Home Sweet Home. Mike looked sad and confused. Tommy just got the bow and arrow on Saturday, Mike said. He doesn't even know how to use it that good. Lulu tapped her pencil on the table and thought. Mm, She realized that Tommy Wren probably didn't kill White Feather's mate. I just don't think he'd hurt a swan, insisted Mike. You're right, Mike, Lulu admitted. The swan was shot before Tommy had a bow and arrow. Mike's sad look turned into a smile. I told you, Tommy's not a bad guy, he said with relief. Yeah, right, Pam snapped. Lulu just shook her head. Anna rolled her eyes. Rosalie and Mimi ran over to the table. We saw the swans, we saw the swans, chanted Mimi. She climbed up on the table and sat facing Anna. They're so cute, said Rosalie as she sat down next to Lulu. Miss Raskins followed the girls to the table. She said hello to Mike and thanked him for bringing Rosalie and Mimi. Rosalie and Mimi would like to watch when the swans go back to the lake, Miss Raskins said. Maybe you could bring them, Mike. We'll do it at noon on Saturday. Sure, agreed Mike. We'll tell Mr. Klein too, put in Anna. We have to go to the hardware store later. That's my hardware store, Mimi said proudly. Only because your mom and dad own it, said Rosalie. I know, said Mimi. Later that day, the Pony Pals rode over to the hardware store. Mr. Klein was pleased to see the girls and their ponies. They told him about saving Slowpoke. They also asked him to donate supplies for the sign. He donated all the wood, paint, and brushes. I'll deliver it to the shelter after work, he promised. For the next 3 days, the girls went to the shelter. They worked on the sign and helped take care of the swans. Each day, White Feathers was a little better. Each day, the pony pals went for a trail ride to exercise their ponies. Friday at noon, the sign was finally finished. The girls stood back to admire it. How to protect wildlife at Lake Apamapog. Don'ts. Don't leave any fishing line at the lake. Don't use lead weights on fishing lures. Don't frighten birds with quick or loud noises. Don't feed birds moldy or white bread. Don't litter. Do's. Do recycle fishing line by bringing it to Klein's hardware store. Do keep a safe distance from swans. Do report any injured birds to St. Francis Animal Shelter. Do keep dogs away from birds. Do sing to swans. Do enjoy our beautiful swans. White Feathers, Friendly, Bottom Up, and Slowpoke. The next morning, the pony pals rode to the shelter. When White Feather saw them, she spread her wings. I think she knows that this is a special day, said Anna. The girls tied their ponies to the hitching post and checked the sign. Lulu gently touched it in several places. It's totally dry, she announced. Put it in the back of the van, Miss Raskins directed. Then we'll pack up our Swan family. Pam opened the big carrier for White Feathers. Lulu got the box for the signets. While Miss Raskins picked up White Feathers, the pony pals each picked up a signet. They carefully placed the swans in their containers. Next, the carrier and box were safely packed into the van. It's time for White Feathers and her signets to go home, announced Miss Raskins as she got into the van. We'll meet you at the beach. The girls remounted their ponies. Snow White whinnied as if to say, What's going on? White Feathers and her babies are going back to the lake, Lulu told her. When the pony pals reached the beach, Miss Raskins was already there. So were Mimi, Rosalie, Mike, and Mr. Klein. Mike was helping Mr. Klein put up the sign. Pam and Miss Raskins took the carrier with White Feathers. Lulu carried the box of signets. They put them on the edge of the sand and opened them up. Miss Raskins lifted out White Feathers. Pam took out Friendly, Lulu took out Bottom Up, and Anna was responsible for Slowpoke. They placed the swan and her signets at the water's edge. White Feathers slowly waddled into the water. Her signets toddled after her. The white swan paused for a few seconds, then swam slowly out onto the lake. Her signets swam behind her. Snow White whinnied in their direction as if to say, Hey, where are you going? White Feathers turned in the water, rose up on her tail, and spread her wings. Everyone on the shore clapped. Anna waved. Bye, White Feathers, she called. We'll see you around. Good luck, shouted Lulu. We'll be watching out for you, called Pam. Friendly spread out his little wings just like his mother. Bottom Up dived for food. Slowpoke tried to keep up with her mother and siblings. Lulu noticed a few brown feathers near her feet. She picked them up. I'll be right back, Lulu told her friends. Lulu went over to the hitching post and put the small feathers in Snow White's halter. Snow White nuzzled Lulu's shoulder. The feathers are a present from your friends, she whispered to her pony. Lulu and Snow White stood side by side, watching the swans. Lulu began to hum Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Anna and Pam joined in. Rosalie and Mimi did too. Then Mike and Miss Raskins added their voices. White Feathers raised her wings one more time. Snow White sighed contentedly. Lulu put an arm around Snow White's neck and the other arm around Acorn's. Thank you, she told the ponies. Thank you for saving the swans. The end.